Hello, everyone. Forget about season 2 that you just seen. This is season 3. Welcome back to Own Your Gifts. I got my good friend Joey Pollaro beside me. We're gonna help tap into a couple of the tools that we've used to get through our recoveries over the past 12 years. I know personally for me that I have come up against a whole bunch of hurdles that absolutely living life on life's terms. So over the next 30 minutes, Joey and I are gonna tap into some of that stuff. Joey, how you doing today, brother?
Like I said in the beginning, I'm happy to be here. This is my favorite time in the week. I'm grateful to be able to get on here and share my experience and some of the tools that I've picked up that I found work well with me and work well with my clients in relation to managing our stress and anxiety and changing our states of mind, which is during normal times is challenging and it seems to be really ramped up nowadays, understandably. So hopefully, some people will come away from this with some tools that they could start working with right away.
Yeah, that's great, Joey. I love that you touched on the idea of helping clients too, because there is when you say it like that, I think of there's often some really powerful things that I can share that I know can often help. So yeah, let's get into that. Hello to Bernard. Thanks for jumping on, mate, and thank you to everyone else who joins us each week. We really do appreciate your support. I love personally, absolutely getting those messages after the show from people who have helped have some kind of an impact on you. Joey and I get on here every Friday. We often get a guest on the show that we can interview. We wrap it up in about 30 minutes, and part of our format is we like to do a little inventory each day to kick off the show. Something that I did well today, and something that I could possibly do better tomorrow. Joey, you want to kick us off with that, mate? You got something for us today?
Sure. Fortunately, I'm paying a really close attention to what I'm doing well. And a big thing for me, and this is where I struggle often, is if I'm struggling mentally, emotionally, in any way, I tend to keep it to myself, even though I have a lot of like friends and family and mentors and coaches that I'm working with. And I've been going through a bit of a time, and it's been going on for a while now, and it's been, I guess, not really ups and downs, but rolling hills. And I know it's going to pass, but I grabbed a friend, and I was super honest about how I was feeling, and the truth is that I'm struggling. Like I am struggling with stress and anxiety. I wouldn't go as far as saying that I'm depressed, but I'm certainly down. And it's been a few months, and I haven't suffered this state of mind in years. So me being honest with myself, first of all, aware of what's happening, because sometimes you could be under stress and anxiety or leaning towards a more depressive side and be unaware. So being aware of it, being able to like label it and identify it, and most importantly is being able to share it. And a lot of times when I share it, I find that it immediately has an impact on me. I've heard that it even cuts it in half. I wouldn't doubt that. So I felt a little lift today, just being honest. A lot of times I'll try to stay strong, and a lot of people lean on me and be stoic, and there's no place for that when you're struggling. So that's what I've done well today. What I could do better tomorrow, and part of the reason why I'm feeling the way I'm feeling is I'm on a bit of a binge. Fortunately, I'm not drinking or drugging, or really hurting myself or others. Um, I guess that's debatable, but I'm on a little bit of a sugar binge, which causes me a lot of pain, and I'm a sugar addict, and when I put that shit in my system, it feels like drugs. It feels like I'm doing what my head is telling me not to do, and it also causes me a ton of physical pain because of inflammation. So yeah, I'm tomorrow. I'm going to give it another shot. I made it through most of the day. I went to a meeting, and I said I wasn't going to touch the cookies, and I fucking ate a handful of cookies. I'm trying to be gentle with myself. I know that it's a, I guess, a luxury problem, but it's a serious problem for me because I get affected mentally, emotionally, physically, and even spiritually. So staying off of sugar is what I'm going to aim to do better tomorrow.
Hmm. Thank you so much, Joey. Thanks for your honesty and your vulnerability. Just that in itself is such a powerful tool in recovery, and I know that you know that. It's almost like a problem shared is a problem halved. It takes some of the punch out of it. Um, Yes, so thank you so much for that. And hello to you two, Gabe and Bernard. And we'll be waiting for Kenny. I'm sure Kenny from Sugarland, Texas, will be joining us any moment now. Yeah, I love this little opportunity just to reflect on something I've done well. It's good to focus on our assets, as I often say. And the thing that I have done well today, it's only early, it's only 11 a.m., but um, one of the really powerful tools is trying to be selfless. um that, like, what I've learned over the years in my journey to recovery is when I'm selfless and I think less about myself and more about other people, it automatically results in positive things. And one thing that I've done well today is, in the middle of a real busy time, I stopped and I listened to a family member of someone who was suffering, and I just tried to just listen for a little bit and also offer some type of support and referral for them too. Often people can get lost in trying to contact different services and falling on deaf ears. So one of the things I love to do is be able to share my knowledge with a family member of someone struggling, and just give that. I know this is such a powerful thing. I know it's heard and welcomed by the other people. So I love that I was able to do that right in amongst doing a heap of other shit too. I just noticed. I just said, "Shut up, Danny. Just listen for 10 minutes." Which, so yeah, that's something that I do love about my job actually. But something I could do better tomorrow, and actually for the next 365 days I've committed to this, is building some of my intimate connections with other men in my life in recovery. I'm talking about just friendships. The whole lockdown, the last 12 months, 18 months, I've been doing great. I've been thriving in my own company and doing a lot of other stuff too, but I think I've lacked on relationship building stuff, which of course I have because we've been in lockdown. But the next 12 months, I want to really focus on that, and that starts today. And there's definitely something I can do today. And actually, there's already been stuff that I have done to work towards that. Something I'm thinking of doing. Actually, I'm going to do. And if anyone out there, certainly in the Sydney, in my local area, I'm starting a group, a men's group, starting possibly in the second week in November, where we're going to come together at my place here and do a bit of personal development work. Just and my idea around that is just to build some connections for myself. Actually, everything I do is selfish, Joey, but I know I've been lucky enough to run a couple of these groups over the years, and I know it's a very powerful thing for me to do, and hopefully for other men too. So yeah,
Yeah, whenever people talk about it being a selfish thing, I tend to lean towards you know self-preservation and selfishness being completely different things. And in order for you to be of service to others, you need to be right. And it sounds like building a community, to talk about how and help each other grow is a thing where everybody wins. So I
it's
really like
true,
to hear
Joey.
that.
Yeah, thank you for touching on that. And you're right. I like to say it's almost like when I say the selfish thing, I kind of like to make light of it because I think it's important also at the end of the day, fuck, we're doing this for me. I'm on here right now for me as well because it is a self preservation thing. It helps me in my recovery, it gives me the ability to continue carrying the message with others as well. Guys, thank you everyone who's jumped on. Let us know where you're watching from. If you're joining us for the first time, welcome. Yeah, we'd love to hear from you. Let us know where you're watching from. One of the amazing things about this platform is the ability to connect with people all over the world. I see we've got a couple of people from the States online, and we really do appreciate your support. Joey, what have we got on today, mate?
We're going to talk about something that is always an underlying issue, being a human with a human brain, but with the nature of the world right now, and this pandemic, it seems to getting progressively worse. People suffering with stress and anxiety and depression, suicide, psychosis, everything, all that stuff is ramped up through the roof. And so I have some personal experience with those states of mind. I have learned over the years, out of necessity and desperation, some tools that really work to raise my awareness and give me something to work with to change how I feel. And we're going to talk about some of those things here today. So, I think it's super important, like, if to be able to identify, like, when you're under stress and when you're under anxiety. Some people are so used to being stressed and having anxiety that they don't even know that it's happening. And so in order to change anything, we need to be aware of it first. And I just, I pulled up some a list of a few things of symptoms of anxiety and stress, and obviously, as I read through them, they rang true with me, and something that I'm very familiar with, and I'd like to just read those off and see. There are some people who may be under stress and anxiety and not even be aware, and it's important that it doesn't snowball out of control and turn into something more serious.
For sure, Joey. Before you read them out, let me just say that you just took me back, and like when we're struggling, like I don't know what it's like for you and for others, but if I'm really keeping an open mind and I've got hope and faith that how am I going to get through this, when I hear what you're just saying, it's like I want to know. Tell me how to deal with stuff, because pain and suffering and anxiety and all that stuff, it's really uncomfortable. Yeah. So one of the things I have done a lot of over this last 12 years of my journey is listen to what people's experiences are. Because if you can teach me how to deal with something, I want to know, mate. So I'm really keen to hear what you've got to say, mate. Let us have it. Sorry, my cat's.
Yeah, I mean, I can, there was a time in the not so distant past, when I first got sober in 2009, where I had like such massive anxiety. If I got around other people, I would pass out. I was having panic attacks. I'd be in the
Yeah.
store, and I'd wake up on the ground, like, had no idea how I got in the ground. I was kind of like
Wow.
drooling on myself and like fishing out, and like people were standing over me, completely concerned. And I had to learn some tools to manage my stress and anxiety. And so, real quick, some of the mental symptoms that you're suffering with anxiety or stress, and it's important to know that all this stuff happens in our mind. And so, being aware of our thinking and learning to manage our thinking and what we focus on is super important. But some of the mental symptoms of anxiety and stress are dread, overthinking, poor sleep and appetite, irritability, poor concentration and focus, and wanting to escape. And that's a thing where, if you're an alcoholic or a drug addict or an addict of any kind, you need to be really conscious of, because that could get ugly pretty quick. Because lots of ways to escape, most of them aren't healthy. There's some physical symptoms of that you're having anxiety and stress is shallow or quick in breathing, stomach pains or pains in your chest, dry mouth, being tired, being dizzy. um, so, I think that some of the tools that I've learned to manage my state of mind are, physiological tools, right? My physiology, my focus, my language, how do I speak to myself, and the meaning that I place on things. So obviously, when we're talking about physiology, there's lots of ways that we can change our physiology that can have an impact on our state of minds. It could be as simple as just, you'll notice if you're depressed or you're stressed, typically your head's down or your hands in your head, or your posture, you might be really super tense. Is just to loosen your body a little bit, hold your head up, take a deep breath, keep your shoulders back, this, so sometimes a simple change of your body will have a huge effect. And then obviously, there's meditation and breath work, and I'll share, an exercise with you, in a little bit, and focus, like what I'm paying attention to. Usually, if we're stressed out and we are anxiety, there's a good chance that we're not in the present. Usually, we're off into the future, and when we're depressed, there's a pretty good chance that we're in the past. So being trying to be present, mindfulness techniques, being aware of your surroundings. Sometimes it's just looking around, checking in with yourself, feeling parts of your body is enough to pull you out a little bit. And then language. When I'm stressed out, my head starts. I start speaking to myself very negatively. So it's important that I'm really conscious of my self-talk and
Mm,
how I'm speaking to myself and stay on top of that. And then, meaning rather than like, oh, this shit is happening to me, or if this person didn't do that, I wouldn't feel this way, or if I could just make more money or pay my bills, then I wouldn't be stressed out. I like to, when I'm starting to be aware that I'm in a state of mind that isn't particularly empowering to me, I like to place my own meaning on it. And the meaning I like to always place on it is like, perhaps this is calling my attention to something that I need to address. Or a lot of times what my lived experience has taught me is that when I'm in a particular situation, it's always trying to teach me something. If I'm not looking to blame, if I'm not looking to redirect it, if I'm not looking to, in a like a self pity or victim mindset, I start to try to ask myself a few questions like, what's the lesson, what's the blessing, and what's the meaning. So a surefire way to change your state of mind is through your physiology. You can do that with physical exercise. You can do it with cold water therapy. You can do it with your posture. You can do it with breath. Lots of ways. So physiology, focus, language, and meaning. What
mm.
about you, Danny boy? Like,
Very,
I'm sure you have experience with stress. What are your stress busters? I know
you,
exercise is one of them.
you are a very knowledgeable man, Joey. Thanks for sharing that. I really enjoyed hearing all that stuff. And let me tell you, like, I'm generally a pretty happy, I reckon, yeah, glass half full kind of guy. I like to think maybe 80% of the time I'm good, but let me tell you, I can tick every single one of those boxes that you just mentioned in the emotional feelings and certainly the physical feelings of anxiety, depression, call it what you will. For me, when I talk about depression, I guess I am it's probably a lighter depression. I certainly don't want to minimize anybody else. I don't know how other people experience that stuff, but one of the things I do is just keep an open mind, Joey. Like really, I'm a follower. Right? I don't like. I'm not. I've learned this about myself. I'm not a leader. I love. So where I'm going with this is actually I like to copy others and rather than uh, how
Modeling somebody that you
maybe yeah.
admire, or
I love that about me. I love that it took me years to realize that actually I don't want to be a leader. I want to be a, I call it a follower, and it's actually a really powerful place to be. But yeah, look, there's a whole bunch of things. I've got these tools I call pulling out the big guns. I've shared them with you before. I love that you touched on breath work. I don't do it often. It's actually hard work, breath work, but I know far out. I get a buzz out of that stuff. Meditation, I do at least twice a week, which isn't that good, but it's a good balance for me. Um, I pray like a motherfucker. That just saying that term, it's really powerful. It's like that's when I really pray. Like I ask for help. I'm not talking about any religious God for the purpose of this. I'm just saying like I just ask for help. I reach out to my mates. I might call 5 friends on a bad day. God, 5 friends might be an exaggeration. Maybe three. Um, but I'll reach out to people. There's a whole bunch of stuff that I've learned in recovery. Little tiny steps that I can take to make the big picture. There isn't one thing that certainly works for me. And if all else fails, I will curl up on the lounge, put on some Netflix, and I'll feel uncomfortable, and I'll just accept it basically, and know, have faith, and hope that I will get through this. Maybe tonight, maybe tomorrow. Um, but soldier on, you know. But can I just share something I've been working on recently around depression? Is I caught up with my supervisor. He's an absolute legend. My supervisor for the work I do. I use him more of a training kind of thing. But one thing we were talking about was depression. And like I said, I want to go back and say, like, I know we all experience depression separate, but one of the things we were talking about is how I've gotten through my depression in the 12 years I've been in recovery, and also how he got through it. And we came up with a little list of questions to ask yourself. Um, and the idea is to separate depression and anxiety from who we are to just being a part of us, you know. So take it away from your identity, and just depression is just something that I feel. It's not me. I'm not depressed. Depression is just something that I go through. So if you're okay, let me ask you this: like, what does depression look like for you? This is an exercise you might want to do some writing around. You know, like, what does depression look like for you? How does it feel? And where has your depression come from is another great question. Maybe you identify it as it being a family thing, a hereditary thing. Maybe it's because you've just had a shitty relationship breakup. Or maybe it's from a lack of self acceptance too. And another question is, how does my depression manifest itself? You know, does it come out in a lack of motivation, laziness? Big ones for me. Good question to also ask you. So, and probably the most important thing I think we need to ask ourselves when going through this stuff is, are you at risk? You know, like, is this something that you've been dealing with for a long time? Are you at risk of hurting yourself? Fuck, even though personally yeah, look, it's always important to get some medical help if necessary. And that goes on more to, where would I like to get to? How would life look like if I didn't identify as being depressed and I just made it separate from myself? Is another great question. What do I need to do to get there as well? Like, all of this stuff, when we start talking about this stuff, creating a language around separating depression from my identity is how we begin to walk through it. So it's funny that we brought up this topic today, Joe, because that paperwork was just sitting right in front of me. And actually, I'm creating a bit of a program around this for Encapsulator. Some questions that will help guide you through identifying your depression from your identity, and walking through it, creating that language, and just separating it. Because we don't have to be sad and depressed and anxious all the time. I don't, anyway. You know, I can only talk for myself. So yeah, hope that helps answer some
I
of
really
your questions.
love that, Danny. It's so important, like, to be asking ourselves the right questions, and a lot of times the questions are the answers. And you know, and um, you said, you mentioned something else that is super important, and that's identity, and labels. And I'll
Yeah,
briefly
absolutely.
share my experience
Please do, Joe.
with depression. And throughout my life, perhaps I had it. When I was I was out there drinking and drugging for over 2 decades, and I think I might have been depressed without any awareness of it. I think I was medicating it, or I didn't understand it. And when I got sober, one of the when I got off the alcohol and drugs, I think I really got slammed hard with those feelings and emotions that are associated with depression, and some of the ancillary ones that I feel like I had a little bit more control over, that I was getting a fix on, which was self pity and being a victim. And I went to a doctor, and this is my personal experience. I do want to say this: like, depression is very real, it's very dangerous. I lost a lot of friends, and family members um, to depression in one form or another, either drinking and drugging themselves to death, suicide. So it's important that you ask for help and go for help, and there are resources for help. But my personal experience with depression was when I got off alcohol and drugs. One of the things that was asked of me is for me to see a therapist, which I had seen before, but every time I went to a therapist, they tell me, "Oh, maybe you have a problem with alcohol." And I was like, "Fucking see you later." Like, you know what I mean? I didn't make their job easy. But you know, I got diagnosed as being depressed, and I got medicated for being depressed. And I took that diagnosis and made it my identity. And I did depression better than anybody else.
Mm.
And I used depression to hide, to not jump into the stream of life, to like manipulate other people, to get attention. And when I had enough and I had to hit another bottom in sobriety, when I had enough, I was done. Like I realized that I wasn't actually depressed, that I was doing depression, and that I was actually like wallowing in self pity, and I was getting off on being a victim, and because it allowed me to continue to run from life. And
Yeah.
I weaned off of antidepressant drugs, and I started to focus on some of the things that we'll hit on, but we don't have a ton of time. My exercising, prioritizing, the food that I'm putting into my body, what I'm not putting into my body, prioritize my rest, paying close attention to, my thinking and my words, and obviously looking at what I'm doing well and looking at what I'm grateful for. And these are some of the things. And I weaned off of antidepressant medication. I haven't had an ounce of depression since then. It's been going on 7 years, so I'm having a little rough road here. But I'm certainly not sinking in the hole I was. So for me, it was really about deciding to live another way. And then it's like you said, finding, picking a direction and start moving in that direction. So like, it's not that like that for everybody. For me, I don't think I was ever depressed. I just think that I was feeling bad for myself, and I was getting off on that. And it was another way that I could control things. So what are some of the tools that we can use to manage our depression? Danny, you mentioned some of them. I think it's important to be asking ourselves the right question. There's something that I learned from actually learned this in treatment, and one of the things that I learned was is you have to name it to tame it. So it's important, like when you feel it, to say it out loud, like I'm feeling anxious or I'm stressed out, or this is stress or this is depression. It creates a little bit of separation between you and it, which is a lot
Yes,
of the
for
questions that
sure.
you were talking about,
Yeah.
Danny. And you know, another huge thing for me is the breath work. I'm a meditator. Most of my clients, the common thread amongst them, all of them, and people that I work with in recovery, is the common thread that runs amongst them is stress, anxiety, overwhelm, and procrastination. Almost all of them. And the first thing I always suggest is meditation. And I'm almost always met with resistance. I don't know how to meditate. I suck at it. I'm not doing it right. It takes too much time. Blah 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 blah. But the truth is, it takes a very little amount of time. And in my opinion, there's two types of meditation: the type that you do and the type that you don't do. How long do you meditate? However long you'll do. A breath work, some breath work that I learned, on his name is Dr. Andrew Weil. He teaches something called the 478 breath technique. That is a game changer. It is for me. I still do it every morning and every night. And we can go over it really quickly right now. So it's a breath. You do 4 repetitions of each cycle, and it's you breathe in through your nose very softly and quietly and controlled for the count of 4. Then you hold on the inhale for a count of 7, and then you blow out very audibly and forcibly, like for a count of 8, and that's one cycle. 4, 7, 8. In 4, hold 7, out 8, repeat. And you do that 4 times in the morning and 4 times at night. No more, no less, 4 times. And that has a tremendous effect on your physiology. You'll feel yourself come down if you're stressed. So it's the 4, 7, 8 breath technique. That's my stress and anxiety busting tool.
To go, Joey. I love hearing all that stuff. I relate to every single thing there, especially around, and I've said this before too, but like when we're suffering, sometimes we enjoy a bit of a defect, whether we realize it or not. I think yeah, that I really resonated with that stuff. Look, the tips and the breath work, like that's great. I just did that as you said. I actually get a bit of a buzz from doing that.
Yeah, if
To
you do it consistently, it'll completely change your cells. It'll take your nervous system and turn it into your ally. It works. If you didn't catch all that, look up Dr. Andrew Weil 478 breath technique, and there's a video you'll find that'll walk you through it. It takes a minute or two max. If you're stressed and you have anxiety, if you don't have a minute or two to spend trying it, I don't know, maybe you're getting
yeah,
off on it.
you
You
fucked
know,
it because you surely everyone can come up this time. It's funny how I often used to think like I'm too busy to meditate. And when I say too busy, it's like I'm too busy thinking. Actually, I've got to think about stuff. I can't just stop. But like the, the cliche, the actual results of meditation helps us to think clearer, and and it's like organizing. It's like my brain's this messy file cabinet, and when I do a bit of meditation, I help put shit into order. It's one of the
totally, man.
it's one
And
of the ways.
sometimes you could just be aware of your surroundings, because usually when we're, like I said in the beginning, when we're depressed, we're in the past. When we have stress and anxiety, we're usually in the future. So if we bring some mindfulness into it, and that could be as simply as just looking around, like looking
For
around at your
sure.
surroundings, feeling your body, feeling your feet on the ground, just bringing yourself into the present moment, just for a little bit, to give you a taste that, hey, wait a minute, I'm not present. And prayer, meditation, these sound like esoteric things, or super spiritual things, but what they're really all about is keeping you in the present moment. So like in the present moment is where we need to be. So
Absolutely.
we're moving through this pretty quick, Danny boy. So you have
Yeah,
any
throw it
closing
up.
comments before we share our gratitude tools?
Um, no, let's get into it. I appreciate the discussion's good. This is helpful. Any little tip I can get, like this, your breathing technique, and I noticed Julie just says thank you too, and I know Julie will be sharing this technique in some of her work, so no worries, Julie.
It's a
Um,
game changer for
yeah,
real.
there you go. So,
Simple.
um, no, Joey, let's take us out, mate. Time to wrap it up. Something that a helpful tip to help improve your levels of happiness and tap into the higher forces of gratitude. That's how we wrap up this show, mate. You got something for us today?
Yeah, I think gratitude is a higher force. It's available to us. It's infinitely giving, but we have to plug into it, and it's really simple. And there's many ways to do it, and you don't need to be grateful to be practice gratitude. So that's my first tip: is that the practice of gratitude generates feelings of gratitude, and stress, anxiety, depression um, can't exist in the same space with us being grateful. So if it needs to be done 100 times a day, do it 100 times a day. It's I like to, I'm bringing it back to really, really, really simple. I have lots of gratitude tools that I like to use, but one that I use as maintenance, and I do it in the morning and I do it at night, and I write three things that I've done well today. Another thing, when you're depressed and you have stressed and you have anxiety, typically you're only focusing on like what you're fucking up, like where you're falling short, like how you're not enough. What do you want that you can't get? What you have that someone's going to take? So focusing on three things that you've done well, the simplest of things. It could be, hey, I woke up, I made my bed, I held the door for Miss Jones, and I stuck to my eating plan. Whatever it is, three things that you've done well and three things that you're grateful for. When you're choosing things that you're grateful for, the work comes in the struggle to find a new thing. So keep them simple, keep them typically insignificant things that you typically take for granted, small things. So three things that you did well, three things that you're grateful for. It's good to write it, handwrite it on paper. When you handwrite it, as opposed to typing it or just saying it in your mind, you bring other senses into the situation. There's holding the pencil. There's the sound of the pencil scratching on the paper or the pen scratching on the paper. You can actually see it. this adds connections in your brain and starts to make connections. You start to be able to feel it more. So that's my tip.
Wonderful, Joe. There's definitely science behind that stuff as well. I have done a little bit of research into, that actually physically putting it down on paper. Look, I'll just wrap it up with something I dropped to one of the boys this morning, and it is that we know that we hear all the time that gratitude is an action, and you've just suggested some of those actions. But I want to just remind people that we can't just wake up today feeling happiness if we haven't put any action in yesterday and last week. I think my gratitude today comes as a direct result of the efforts I put in yesterday, the day before, and the day before. And I'm talking about service to other human beings, being a good person, and trying to be a little bit selfless or a little less selfish, and trying to give back to. I think it's one of the ultimate formulas that's helped keep me pretty mentally stable and levels of happiness over the past decade or so, mate. So that's it, Joey. Thank you so much, everyone who jumped on. Thanks for all the comments, Julia. Hope you have a wonderful day, Andrea, Bernard, Gabe, Kenny. We missed you, mate. I hope. And I know I've got a couple of guys on Facebook that their comments never come through here. But hello to you too, Ray. Ray, you're an absolute legend. Hey D, thanks for jumping on. Joey, see you next week, bro.
Yeah, it was a great show. Thank you, everybody, for showing up. If you picked up something today, remember that information without implementation is worthless. So practice
Boom.
it. And more importantly, the best way to solidify it is to teach it to somebody else.
Good on you, Joey. Stay with me for a minute. All right, guys. Thank you. Thank you.